The night air hummed heavy, imbued with a strange odor of stale popcorn and rusted metal, a scent that seemed to whisper forgotten secrets. The mystery machine, its psychedelic paint somewhat faded, glided slowly down a bumpy dirt road, headlights cutting through the dense fog that clung to the ground. Inside, the silence was almost palpable, broken only by the static of an old radio trying to tune into a station. Scooby-Doo, with his floppy ears, peered out the window, an apprehensive growl escaping his throat. Beside him, Shaggy chewed his nails, eyes wide. "Like Scooby, do you smell that?" he mumbled, his voice trembling. "It's the smell of trouble that smells like mold." Velma, ever practical, adjusted her glasses, the dashboard's reflection glinting in the lenses. "The smell is ozone and rust, Shaggy. Probably the park's generators or some old metal structure." But even she couldn't hide a pang of apprehension. That anonymous invitation to investigate Creepy Hollow Amusement Park, a place abandoned for decades, had an urgent and, frankly, quite sinister tone. Rumors of visitors disappearing in the area around the park were vague but persistent, and something in her detective's intuition was ringing alarm bells. Fred, at the wheel, gripped the steering wheel, his blue eyes scanning the darkness ahead. "Looks like we're here. Creepy Hollow ... The name itself is an invitation to a mystery, isn't it?" He tried to sound enthusiastic, but there was a subtle tension in his voice. Daphne, beside him, hugged herself, a shiver running down her spine. "It's so ... desolate. I'm cold." You can feel the chill even with the windows closed. The headlights finally revealed a twisted iron gate, covered in wild ivy, with a rusty sign swinging precariously. "Welcome to Creepy Hollow, where the fun never ends or never begins." Silence fell again, even denser now, as the mystery machine stopped in front of the gloomy entrance. Suddenly, a sharp metallic squeal cut through the air, like a ghostly cry coming from inside the park, making Scooby and Shaggy jump in their seats, yelping in unison. The mystery had just begun, and they all felt that this would not be a case like the others. The stakes were high, perhaps too high. The rusty gate groaned agonizingly as Fred pushed it open, clearing a path for the mystery machine to enter Creepy Hollow Amusement Park. The fog, which had previously hung low, now thickened, swallowing the outlines of the deactivated rides, transforming them into ghostly silhouettes against the dark, gray night sky. A peculiar smell of stale cotton candy and abandoned machine oil wafted through the air, a sweet and macabre reminder of long-forgotten glory days. The sound of the wind howled through the structures, creating eerie melodies that seemed to mourn the years of abandonment. It was an environment that evoked both nostalgia and a deep sense of dread. "Zoinks, this place gives me the creeps, Fred," Shaggy yelped, clutching Scooby, who cowered beside him. Both friends were trembling like leaves in the wind. "It's like even the ghosts took permanent vacation here." Fred, ever the leader, tried to calm them with his usual determination. "Don't worry, guys. We're here to solve the mystery. I'm sure it's just some prankster trying to scare us." He parked the mystery machine near a rusty roller coaster, its tracks twisting skyward like the skeletons of giant serpents. Velma, for her part, already had the park map in hand, her glasses reflecting the flashlight's beam. According to this faded map, the park's main office was around here. She pointed to a crumbling building, with broken windows that looked like empty eyes in the darkness. "Maybe we'll find some clues there." Daphne, despite the shiver, tried to maintain her composure. It's incredible how a place that was meant for joy can become so ... frightening. She walked cautiously, avoiding the debris scattered on the ground. "I feel like we're walking on the shattered dreams of thousands of children." As they explored the main path, passing shooting galleries with decapitated dolls and carousels with eyeless wooden horses, a metallic creak echoed from an abandoned circus tent, making Scooby and Shaggy jump. They hid behind Fred, who spun around sharply, flashlight in hand. "What was that?" Shaggy asked, his voice thin. Sounded like a toy falling, Fred replied, trying to sound confident, but the sound had been too distinct to be just that. They approached the tent, a strong smell of moldy canvas and rotting straw invading their nostrils. The interior was in ruins, with overturned benches and some scattered circus props. Suddenly, a dusty cassette tape was kicked by Scooby, who startled and tossed it to Velma. She caught it, curious. A cassette tape? Who still uses these? Velma examined the tape under the flashlight's beam. It was an old audio tape, unlabeled. Her detective's curiosity was immediately piqued. She searched for a recorder amidst the wreckage and, to everyone's surprise, found a small, rusty Walkman. With some effort, she managed to get it to work. The voice that emerged from the small speaker was calm, methodical, with a sinisterly amused tone, and it sent shivers down everyone's spines. "Hello, Mystery Inc. Welcome to my game. Many came to this park seeking fun, but now, fun here comes at a price. You will have to prove your worth. The rules are simple, but the consequences, deadly. The rides are not what they seem. For every challenge, there will be a choice. Make the wrong choice, and the final curtain will fall upon you." The voice stopped, and the tape continued to spin, emitting a disturbing hiss. Scooby and Shaggy hugged each other, their teeth chattering. "Like Velma, that voice is creepy," Shaggy squeaked. Fred, his face pale, swallowed hard. This ... This isn't a bad joke. This is serious. It seems we're dealing with something much bigger than a simple ghost. We have a game to play, and I don't like the rules. Velma turned off the Walkman, the sound of the voice still echoing in their minds. That voice. It sounds familiar. I've heard something similar in old cases. Or maybe in some criminal file. We need to find more of these tapes. They might give us more clues. This host of the game is watching us, and it seems he wants to play with us. Silence fell again, even more oppressive now. The mystery machine, once a refuge, seemed small and vulnerable under the dark and threatening immensity of the park. Scooby and Shaggy trembled, while Fred, Velma, and Daphne exchanged glances, each with their own dark thoughts. This park was not just abandoned. It was being used as a deadly game board, and they were the pawns. The heavy, damp air of the amusement park seemed to close in around the gang. Every rusty squeak from the abandoned rides and every whisper of the wind sounding like a macabre warning. After digesting the disturbing message from the tape, the Mystery Inc. team knew this wouldn't be a typical mystery. This was a game with rules and a sadistic host. "We need to spread out and look for more tapes," Fred said, his voice a little deeper than usual. "Velma, you, Scooby, and Shaggy can check the carousel area. Daphne, you and I can take a look at the House of Mirrors. Maybe he left more messages there. Divide and conquer?" Daphne murmured, her voice not quite concealing her apprehension. "Sounds like a good strategy, Fred, but what if he's waiting for that?" She cast an uneasy glance at the dancing shadows among the rides. "I feel like this game master knows exactly what we're thinking." Velma nodded, adjusting her glasses. Daphne has a point. If this is a game, he must have prepared every move. But the tapes are crucial. The voice ... It has a peculiar timbre. If I can get more samples, maybe I can compare it to known criminal voice recordings or, even former park employees. She motioned to Scooby and Shaggy. "Come on, guys. And try not to eat anything that isn't a Scooby snack." "Roro." Scooby yelped in agreement, but his hungry gaze at a fallen, moldy popcorn bag revealed his true intentions. Shaggy shook his head. "No way, Velma. This place smells like a giant snack trap." As Velma, Scooby, and Shaggy headed to the carousel area, an intermittent metallic creak guided them there. The carousel, once vibrant, now lay with its faded, eyeless horses, frozen in a ghostly dance under the fog. The smell of rusted metal and rotten wood was almost suffocating. "Zoinks, look at that!" Shaggy exclaimed, pointing to a carousel horse that had a rusty lever where the saddle should be. There was a small speaker hidden at the base. Velma approached, her eyes glinting with curiosity. A sound trap. It seems our friend Jigsaw doesn't just want us to find the tapes, but to interact with the environment as well. She pulled the lever, and with a click, a second cassette tape was ejected from a hidden compartment in the horse. Upon playing the tape, the calm, menacing voice from before resounded again. "Congratulations, curious detectives. You found the first rule. In this game, haste is a dangerous friend. The carousel spins and death sings. If there is no answer to every question, the rider will fall." A dry click marked the end of the message. Scooby and Shaggy, who were peeking from behind Velma, let out a high-pitched yelp. The carousel began to spin slowly, emitting eerie noises, and one of the horses, with a broken saddle, swayed dangerously. "Like Velma, what does that mean?" Shaggy asked, eyes wide. "It means he's challenging us every step of the way," Velma replied, thoughtfully. "The carousel is spinning, and the consequences are deadly if we don't act fast. But what is the answer to every question? And the rider will fall." She looked around, trying to decipher the enigma. Meanwhile, Fred and Daphne ventured into the House of Mirrors, a distorted labyrinth of warped reflections and shattered glass. The smell of broken glass and ancient dust hung in the air. "Ooh, this place makes me sick," Daphne murmured, trying to avoid seeing her own distorted reflection in one of the cracked mirrors. "It feels like we're in a horror movie." Fred shone his flashlight, examining every corner. "It's the perfect place for a villain to hide, and for traps, Daphne. Keep an eye out for anything out of place." Suddenly, a small click coming from behind one of the broken mirrors caught Fred's attention. He carefully pushed the mirror, revealing a secret compartment. Inside, there was a series of rusty gears and levers, and in the center, another cassette tape. Fred inserted the tape into a portable recorder he always carried with him. The ominous voice filled the air. "Truth is a mirror. It distorts, reflects, and sometimes shatters. With each fragment, a choice. Choose wrong, and your reflections will be your tormentors. The path to the exit is reflection. The lies are your own prison." Daphne shivered. "That's even scarier than the first one. He's warning us about choices and about truth. But what truth?" Fred examined the gears and levers. "This is a locking mechanism. It looks like the exit from this room depends on a puzzle. Velma would go crazy with this." He looked at Daphne, an idea shining in his eyes. "Daphne, you're good at seeing patterns, at noticing details that I might miss. Let's try to figure this out together." Suddenly, a loud sound of shattering glass echoed through the house, coming from a deeper part of the labyrinth. Scooby and Shaggy, who were with Velma, heard the sound and screamed in panic. Sounds like someone's having a mirror-breaking day," Shaggy yelped. Velma frowned. "What was that?" "Fred and Daphne are in the House of Mirrors. We need to go there." The gang, still separated, felt a new level of danger. The tapes weren't just messages. They were triggers, and the game was just beginning. What awaited them in the House of Mirrors? And were Fred and Daphne safe? The deafening sound of shattering glass from the House of Mirrors reverberated throughout the park, making Scooby and Shaggy yelp in fear. "Zoinks! That didn't sound like an accident, Velma," Shaggy exclaimed, pushing Scooby to shield him, though the dog was even more terrified. Velma, with determination etched on her face, ran towards the sound, her glosses bobbing. "Fred! Daphne! Are you okay?" she shouted, her voice echoing among the silent rides. Scooby and Shaggy, despite their dread, followed her, their hearts pounding a mile a minute. The smell of broken glass and rusted metal intensified as they approached. Inside the House of Mirrors, the scene was chaotic. Several mirrors were shattered, forming a tangle of broken reflections. Fred and Daphne were crouched, surrounded by shards of glass. "We're fine, Velma," Fred replied, his voice hoarse. "But Jigsaw doesn't seem to have liked our attempt to leave." "Jigsaw?" Velma asked, surprised. Daphne pointed to a blurred figure rapidly moving away between the distorted reflections. A blur. He looked like a pig mask and an old coat, and he threw something at us. She bent down and picked up a small voice recorder, identical to the one Velma had found. Upon playing the tape, the familiar cold voice resounded again. With every escape, a new illusion. With every attempt to unravel, a new challenge. Did you think you would leave so easily? The House of Mirrors is more than a reflection. It is a test of trust, and one of you is about to have that trust broken. The villain wasn't just observing. He was actively involved in the game, raising the stakes. A shiver ran down everyone's spine. "This is insane!" Shaggy exclaimed, trembling. "He's playing with us. But how did he get in and out so fast?" Fred questioned, examining the trail of destruction. "He must know this place like the back of his hand." Velma, thoughtfully, looked at the mirror fragments. "The broken trust. Is that a threat or a riddle? And why did he warn us about it?" She turned to Fred. "You mentioned the gears. What kind of puzzle was it?" Fred pointed to the secret compartment. It was a kind of lever combination. It looked like we had to activate them in a specific order to unlock the door. I tried some combinations, but when the figure appeared, he threw this scary dummy at us, and the noise made all the mirrors fall. He kicked a wooden dummy with red eyes and a macabre smile which rolled to the side. Like he has an arsenal of scary toys. Shaggy yelped, running behind Scooby. While Velma was trying to decipher the gear puzzle, Daphne walked away, looking at the fresh footprints in the dusty floor. "Wait a minute. These footprints are too big to be our villains. They're work boot prints much larger than the man I saw. And there are other marks, drag marks." She pointed to a faint groove in the dusty floor, which led to a hidden passage behind a broken mirror. "Good observations, Daphne," Fred praised. "It seems our villain isn't alone, or maybe he's using some kind of disguise or trick to appear bigger and scarier." Velma, who was still trying to unravel the gear puzzle, straightened up. "He's not a ghost. He's here. He's real. And the tapes are our guide. We need to find more. They're giving us the logic of his game." She paused, her eyes widening. What if the phrase "one of you is about to have that trust broken" isn't a threat, but a trick to make us distrust each other? Scooby and Shaggy, hearing Velma's theory, exchanged nervous glances. Like, "We're not going to distrust each other, Velma," Shaggy assured, hugging Scooby. "We're a team." Fred nodded. "Velma's right. He wants to destabilize us. But we're not falling for it. We're stronger together. We need to think of a trap, a big one. Something that gives us a real chance to catch him." Daphne smiled. "I have some ideas. I've been observing the park's patterns, the emergency exits, and the paths he would likely use to escape. We can use that to our advantage." "That's it," Fred exclaimed, excited. "We need a trap. And we need to lure him to a place where he can't escape. And maybe use a very tasty bait." He looked at Scooby and Shaggy, who immediately felt a chill down their spines. "Row." Scooby yelped, swallowing hard. Velma nodded. "The voice on the tapes? If I can analyze it with more data, maybe I can identify whose it is. We need more tapes for that analysis. And in the meantime, Fred, you and Daphne can start planning that trap." The group felt a new sense of purpose. The tension was still palpable, but now there was a plan. They would play Jigsaw's game, but on their own terms. The next move was theirs. The trap would be their answer to the challenge. The trap plan began to take shape under the dim light of their flashlights. The park's night air still thick with the smell of rust and mold. Fred, with his clipboard and pencil, sketched complex diagrams on the dusty ground, explaining every detail with enthusiasm. "The idea is simple, but effective," he began, his eyes gleaming with a passion for traps. "We'll use the old ghost train as the centerpiece. It's dark, full of twists and turns, and most importantly, it has a series of doors and secret passages that we can control." Daphne, who had become surprisingly astute at observing the environment, suggested, "We can use the tracks to guide our villain exactly where we want him. And the secret passages, Fred, can be used for us to move around undetected." "Exactly, Daphne." Fred praised, impressed, and the bait. "Oh, the bait will be the best part." He turned to Scooby and Shaggy, who immediately started trembling. "Like, don't tell me the bait is us." Shaggy yelped, hunting Scooby. "To trap our Shaggy and Scooby." Scooby agreed, his teeth chattering. Fred smirked. "Not exactly. The bait will be a feast. A feast of miniature Scooby snacks strategically scattered inside the ghost train. The smell will attract our Jigsaw, hungry for thrills, and who knows, for a real snack." Velma, who had been absorbed in her tape analysis, looked up. "It's a good idea, Fred. He seems to like games, and the idea of a hunt for a reward might lure him. But what if he notices the trap?" "That's where the surprise comes in," Fred replied, pointing to the ghost train. "We'll use the train's control mechanisms to activate it at the right moment, and when he's inside, the doors will close. And the mystery machine, which will be strategically parked, will block the main exit." "Brilliant," Daphne exclaimed, already imagining the scene. "And we can even use some of the old train's sound effects and lights to disorient him." "Real effects?" Scooby asked, imagining real ghosts. Shaggy laughed nervously. "Only if they're ghost sandwiches, Scooby." With the plan outlined, the gang got to work. Fred, with Velma's help, began reconnecting the rusty wires and levers of the ghost train's control panel. The smell of burning electricity and old grease hung in the air as they worked. Daphne and Shaggy scattered the miniature Scooby snacks throughout the train cars, the scent of fresh biscuits and processed meat mingling with the putrid odor of the environment. Scooby, of course, tried to eat some of the bait, but Shaggy stopped him. "Hold on, Scooby. Those are for Jigsaw. I mean, for the villain." As they worked, a strange sound came from the tracks. A metallic dragging, as if something heavy was being pulled. Everyone froze. The air grew even colder. What was that? Daphne whispered, grabbing Fred's arm. Fred pointed to one of the train windows. A tall, slender shadow seemed to glide among the bushes, and the sound of rusty metal creaking intensified. "He's here," Velma whispered, her eyes wide. He sensed the trap. Suddenly, the train lights flickered, and the old sound effects activated, but in a distorted and terrifying way. Demonic laughter echoed through the cars, and distorted voices screamed, "The game doesn't end here. You've fallen into my own trap. The bait you prepared, was for you." The gang cringed as the train doors slammed shut, trapping them inside. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed from outside the train, and the pig-masked figure appeared at the window, the macabre smile of the wooden dummy emblazoned on its face. He hadn't fallen into the trap. He had turned it against them. The reversal was shocking, and a feeling of helplessness washed over everyone. "Zoinks! He tricked us!" Shaggy screamed, while Scooby tried to dig a hole in the car floor. Fred banged on the glass. No, he knew. But how? He must have an informant. Velma, despite the panic, turned on her flashlight and began examining the train's interior. He's not just a prankster. He's a strategist, and he's one step ahead. But what did he mean by the bait was for you? She looked at the scattered Scooby snacks. Was there something in them? The train began to move slowly, with a terrifying creak, taking them to an unknown part of the park. The trap they had built for the villain was now their own prison. The plan had failed, and now they were in serious trouble. Would Fred be able to find a way out in time? Or had Jigsaw truly won the game? The ghost train, transformed into a carriage of fear, rattled and groaned as Fred tried in vain to open the jammed doors. The smell of dust and cobwebs was suffocating, and the flickering lights of the train's old special effects created an infernal atmosphere. The villain's distorted laughter echoed from all sides, seeming to come from within the walls. "Like, we should have eaten all the Scooby snacks," Shaggy yelped, hugging Scooby. "At least we die with full bellies." "No time for that, Shaggy," Velma reprimanded him, while Fred tried to break down the door with a loose piece of rail. "He trapped us, but we won't give up. There must be a way out." Suddenly, the train made a sharp turn, throwing everyone to one side. The car groaned, and one of the side panels came loose, revealing a small crack to the outside. "It's an exit," Fred exclaimed, rushing to the opening. But before he could reach it, a voice over the loudspeaker, Jigsaw's voice, sounded again. "With every escape, a new illusion. The next room is the final test. With every choice, a life. Save yourself or sacrifice yourself." The train stopped abruptly. The lights went out completely, and a new smell invaded the car, a sweet, sickly smell of corn syrup and frosting. When the lights came back on, they found themselves in a gigantic room, full of oversized culinary objects, a giant cake, a Brigadero machine dripping sticky syrup, and a series of giant cookies hanging from the ceiling. Zoinks! "I don't believe it," Shaggy exclaimed, his eyes wide. "It's a chef's nightmare." "This is your game, Shaggy," Fred said, recognizing the giant culinary objects. What did he mean by sacrifice? Daphne, who had moved away a bit, noticed something strange. The giant cookies hanging from the ceiling were connected by thin wires to a machine on the floor. "Look, those cookies. They're not just decoration. And that machine looks like some kind of press." Suddenly, Jigsaw's voice echoed again. "Choose. The hungriest person must eat enough to stop the press, or else it will crush you all." Scooby and Shaggy looked at each other, their stomachs rumbling in unison. "Like, he's talking about us," Shaggy yelped. But those cookies look like plastic." Velma, always shrewd, examined the machine and the wires. "It's not plastic, Shaggy. It's a type of giant edible gelatin, but to eat enough to stop the press, you'd have to eat an absurd amount. It's a trick." She noticed that the machine had a small hidden lever. "It's not about eating. It's about intelligence." While Scooby and Shaggy desperately tried to bite the giant cookies, Fred began pulling and pushing the culinary objects, looking for a hidden lever. "He wants us to panic," he exclaimed. Daphne, however, noticed something Velma and Fred missed. There was a small mirror hidden in one of the giant Brigaderos. She picked up the mirror and turned it, pointing it at the press. In the reflection, she saw a hidden panel on the floor that Velma had overlooked. "Here," Daphne shouted. "The mirror shows a hidden panel. It's a trap, but the solution is reflection." Velma, following Daphne's hint, quickly went to the panel and opened it, revealing a set of colored wires. "It's a circuit. He wanted us to sacrifice ourselves by eating, but the real solution is to disarm the mechanism." She began cutting the wires with a penknife she carried. Jigsaw's voice, annoyed, echoed again. "Cheaters! You didn't follow the rules." But it was too late. Velma cut the last wire, and the press stopped with a final clunk. The gang breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly, the pig-masked figure burst into the room, running towards them, wielding a baseball bat. Scooby, in a moment of pure adrenaline-fueled heroism, let out a furious bark and ran towards the villain, tripping over a giant Brigadero. The villain, surprised by Scooby's clumsy charge, slipped on the sticky syrup of the Brigadero and fell face-first into a giant cake, his pig mask flying off to the side. "Aha!" Velma exclaimed, running to the villain and snatching the mask. "I knew it. The clues, the games, the voice on the tapes. It all fixed together." Under the mask, to everyone's surprise, was Mr. Percival Perkins. The park's former marketing manager, who had been fired years ago. "Mr. Perkins?" Fred exclaimed, shocked. "But why all this?" Mr. Perkins, covered in frosting and with a bruised face, looked at them with hatred. "You ruined everything. The park, my life, my games. I wanted revenge on those who fired me. I wanted them to feel what I felt." Velma knelt down and picked up the pig mask. "The voice on the tapes was yours, Mr. Perkins, and the smell of corn syrup. It was the main ingredient in all your famous park sweets, an all-factory signature you couldn't disguise. The footprints Daphne found were yours, and Jigsaw. That was a name you used to make it scarier, but the traps became real. You got lost in your own game, didn't you?" Mr. Perkins just growled, his face dripping with frosting. The gang had unmasked the Jigsaw, and the game, finally, had come to an end. Mr. Percival Perkins, the former marketing manager and now frosting-soaked Jigsaw, was handcuffed and taken away by the police, who finally arrived at the park. The suspense that hung over Creepy Hollow finally dissipated, replaced by a palpable relief. The smell of rusted metal and spoiled sweets still lingered in the air, but now it seemed less threatening. "I just wanted them to know what it felt like to be discarded," Mr. Perkins screamed as he was led away. "This park was my life. I created every ride, every attraction, and they threw me out like trash. I just wanted to teach them a lesson, but the traps, they got out of my control." Fred shook his head. It's a shame he let resentment consume him. His talent could have been used for better things. Velma, with a satisfied smile, adjusted her glasses. "Yes, but revenge rarely leads to anything good. All the clues were there, if we knew where to look. Mr. Perkins had been fired for being too intense with his marketing ideas, especially those involving courage tests with visitors. He was the only former employee with access to old park designs and diagrams. The tapes, the culinary rides, the smell of corn syrup, it all pointed to him. He used the Jigsaw name to try to scare people, but his own frustrations led him to create traps he could no longer control." Daphne, who was examining one of the decapitated circus dummies, sighed. At least no one was seriously hurt. "Well, except Mr. Perkins' ego and my fashion sense after slipping in that frosting." She looked at the mystery machine, a beacon of hope in the darkness. "I'm so glad it's over, and that we could help solve this bizarre mystery." Scooby and Shaggy, who were sitting on the ground, exhausted but relieved, exchanged glances. "Like, it wasn't so bad after all, huh, Scooby?" Shaggy said, patting his friend's shoulder. "Right," Scooby agreed, giving a small smile. "And now, I will want a real Scooby snack," Shaggy chuckled. "And how about we leave the deadly games behind and find a place with lots of snacks, Scooby?" "Rah-ha-ha," Scooby replied, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. As the gang prepared to leave, the mystery machine began to pull away from Creepy Hollow Amusement Park. The sun was beginning to rise on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and the park, once a stage for nightmares, now seemed merely an abandoned, sad place. "Well, guys," Fred said from the driver's seat, "another mystery solved." Velma nodded, already pulling out a new puzzle book, and who knows what the next one will be. But one thing's for sure, wherever there's a mystery, Mystery Inc. will be there. Scooby let out one last Scooby-Dooby-Doo as the mystery machine disappeared down the road, leaving behind the macabre amusement park and the memories of Jigsaw's deadly game. They didn't know what the next adventure would be, but one thing was certain. There would always be a snack waiting for them at the end.